On today's episode, I'm welcoming a special student of mine named Quinn Silverleaf. Quinn is a very fascinating person. It's one of those people where I look at them and I instantly see family. And when they were in my course, they had this experience of questioning, expanding, exploring gender and sex. And what happened in the midst of their inquiries and their somatic work was the body wanted to be called she. And this is someone that goes by they, them pronouns and feels agender, so outside of a gender role or construct. And so Quinn was kind of shocked and wrote to me saying, "This is really confusing. It's kind of messing with me. My body is a female, but I am not." And it lit me up. It lit me up because my own history of being born and developing in an intersex body and being bisexual and being mixed race means I never really fit in anywhere. So I also don't always fit into modern day queer theories or gender ideologies because I deeply believe in biological sex. I believe in the binary. Even though I'm an intersex person, the binary showed up in one body, which is how I experience being intersex. So when I meet people that don't believe in the binary, I get confused because I do believe sex is binary. And I also don't believe the sex has to dictate gender roles or expressions. So I see gender as expression, as identity, as creativity. I don't think it needs to be balled up in a certain role because of your sex. I don't think masculine or feminine are exclusive to sex. I think they're energies that move through us. I do think sex hormones amplify those, that's for sure. But I don't think they're exclusive to one or the other sex. So when I heard Quinn, when I read their words saying, wow, my body's saying I'm female and I'm not, I really landed in those words because that's how I've always experienced my own development. And it's how I experienced the development of a lot of trans people that I'm friends with and have worked with, where they know their biological sex, yet they don't fully relate to it. So there's the conscious mind, the spiritual energy, the presence of an individual relating to their body. And from that relationship, there's discomfort, there's disgust, or there's comfort and there's pleasure. I had a lot of dysphoria growing up and a lot of body dysmorphia. So my body was a source of stress for me. My relationship with my body was not a good one. And I sought to change it and did so with top surgery when I was 23. Until I discovered somatics, however, I didn't really know how to relate to my body. I had spent so much of my development hiding my breasts, hiding my hips, hiding my history of developing in an intersex body with female sex characteristics that led me into pretty intense assaults, sexual assaults and traumas and major harassment by the kids in my school, by my peers. So it wasn't until I learned how to relate to my body that I actually started loving my body. Changing it so it looked a certain way and creating more comfort didn't actually equal loving my body. And so I get curious with anyone, whether it's gender, whether it's the shape of your ear, whatever it is, when there's something about your body that feels disgusting or scary or overwhelming or that you dislike, are you seeking to get rid of it or are you seeking to relate to it and in the relationship learn how to move forward? The latter is how I counsel parents and children and teenagers and adults who I've worked with body dysmorphia, with gender dysphoria, with eating disorders, with depression, with suicide ideality. All of these different people I've worked with have been the same through the same somatic lens, which is when you start relating to your body, what do you learn about it? What does it want? What does it need? What kind of support does it need to move forward? And Quinn's testimony and experience to their own coming back to the body is why I wanted to have them on the show, because it is a beautiful convergence between an ideology and a somatic experience. And how do the two come together without the ideology dominating the body and without the body just ignoring the ideology, meaning I might have a physical limited body, but my conscious mind is unlimited. And I believe that in this lifetime, we can play with these bodies however we want to. And so I invited Quinn on to talk about this, and you'll hear more from Quinn's mouth directly.
In my life, yeah, there are elements of masculinity and femininity and things that feel unattached to either. And so I feel like I can feel maleness in me and I can feel femaleness in me and I can feel, even though my body is limited, I feel like there are still things in my body that are beyond that,
Yes.
that just cannot be captured by binary words of male and female.
I'm here with Quinn Silverleaf, and I'm very excited because Quinn was a student in my, at the time, 6-week course. 2 years ago? Was it?
No, it's just a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay, so you were the student. Okay.
2023 spring.
2023, great. And you went through the course, and you had sent me a private message that said many things, but the statement that grabbed my heart was, and I should say, and you can give more background, of course, but at the time you were going into exploring what you would call a genderqueer identity and experience, and being
Yes.
agender, so like kind of losing that, let's say, like biological sex characteristics and the gender attached to them. And then you had written to me and said, in this exploration, in this somatic work, something came up that's really fucking with me. And you said that your body, essentially the words or the statement, my body is female, I am not, emerged.
Mhm.
So can we start there? Tell the listeners more about that experience. They can understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure. So, so I was at the time much newer into my genderqueer identity, and to the world, I mean, I look female, and so that's the way that people treat me. And I was in a place where I was looking at starting testosterone to sort of maybe give me a little more androgyny in my voice and my features. And I was basically trying to throw off some of the shackles of femininity, which is what I felt that the world was putting on me. I wanted to be released from gender overall. I wanted to move into a more agender identity. And through this somatic work that I was doing, I was getting in contact with my body in new ways. And I was journaling one morning and trying to write about these relationship changes with my body. And I tried to, when I was referring to my body, I started saying it. And that was like, no, not that. And I was like, okay, they. I was like, no, that's not it. And I was like, ooh. And so I wrote she, and that felt right. And that really bothered me. So I was like, wait, I thought I wasn't female. What's going on here? And so we did some work together, and that helped me some. And then just through continuing somatic conversations with my body, I came to realize that my body was shifting as I was in perimenopause and didn't realize it also.
That's a big thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as I was looking at starting testosterone, like my body was basically telling me that there were feminine aspects, not feminine, but female aspects of my body that I was not paying attention to that needed attention. And so that led me onto a hormone journey that I'm now still on, where I'm taking testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And I am now more balanced and happier and healthier than I have ever been. And I feel I don't feel, rather than feeling that my body has a gender identity, it's more like it can encompass the entirety of humanity. Masculinity, femininity, and none of the above. And my personality, I still, there's a quote from Travis Alabanza's book, None of the Above. Those who are lucky enough to transcend gender. And that's where I feel like I am.
This is why I wanted you on here, because I love this. I have a lot of controversial views on this subject as someone who's experienced it, not from an outsider. Just to remind people listening, I'm intersex, so I grew up such dysphoria, dysmorphia, confusion with gender, confusion with sex, because when you're intersex, you have these biological um, ambiguities, with sex
Mhm.
characteristics. So my body, even when I hear none of the above, my whole life was none of the above. Like
Yeah.
when I had to do a census or some kind of application, and it would ask for race, I was like, I'm not white, but I'm not also fully Latino. Like I'm mixed. And I was like, which one do
Mhm.
I do? When it was male or
Right.
female, because my sex characteristics, I'm like, I don't know which one to do. And I was always
Mhm.
bisexual. So I'm like, I've always landed right in the middle of the boxes. I could
Mhm.
never land in one.
Yeah.
And growing up, that was hell, because you want to be in a box so you don't stick out. Now I've come to love that I can't fit in the box. It's changed. My whole
Mhm.
life is the way it is, and the way I work is the way it is,
Yeah.
I think, because of that. And I'm saying what fascinates me with I can't really say the queer community, because as we know, it's quite diverse. There isn't just one
Yeah.
community of queer people. But essentially, my friend and I refer to ourselves as old queers because the
Mhm.
queer world changes so rapidly. And
Yeah.
I call myself the queer Rip Van Winkle because I I feel like I fell asleep under this tree and I woke up and like all the rules changed. I'm like, wait, what? Or like the names changed. I'm like, wait, I haven't been updated. Um, and so I'm saying all this because the main thing that I've always experienced with my intersex experience with my friends who are trans is it's the spiritual experience of kind of conscious mind meeting limited body. And
Yes.
right. And so what
Yes.
you just said was something I said to a friend a couple of months ago. We were on the Zoom call together, and I was saying, I believe in sex. I believe in sex not as a classification, but as a somatic experience, like the physicality of it, the ancestry of it, the animal purpose of it. Like I believe in, as an
Mhm.
intersex person, especially, I believe in sex. I had puberty with estrogen dominance, then I had puberty with testosterone dominance. So I feel the different invocations of those sex hormones and how it transforms the body. And
Mhm.
then identity to me is the thing that's like unlimited, and consciousness is
Mhm.
the thing that's unlimited. And I think a lot of our dysphoria and dysmorphia is a result of those limitations hitting an unlimited presence, let's say.
Mhm.
And so your way of sitting with your body saying, whoa, this body is saying she. It feels right to say she to her. This body is female. I'm not really identifying as female, but my body is female. To me, there's such an incredible self-relating in that, where we're honoring the animal body and you're honoring wherever you are on this journey of expressing yourself outside of what feels like you said shackles, of gender imposed on you. I'm just going to
Mhm.
drop that all here and see where that goes for you.
Yeah. Um, I love the conversation about the queer community is definitely an important one to me. And I feel like being older, I'm 49, and seeing the changes that have happened over my lifetime. I've stayed more, I don't feel like I was Rip Van Winkle. I feel like I've stayed more in contact with it going on and I've watched it evolve and I've evolved with it. Um, but also, I feel like because we are so heterogeneous, there are so many different types of people coming from so many different types of experience. For me, it's important that I try to find ways to be authentic to myself, regardless of what's going on in the world. Like I love to listen to the new things coming in and
Mhm.
to take them in and try them on and feel and see, is this resonating for me? Is this working for me? And if not, to come back to what feels right for me. And so I don't want anything that I say here or anywhere else to be taken as proscriptive for anyone else. I only want
Ditto.
to talk about my experience. Um, and so for me, uh, definitely, like I had to reckon with that female aspect of my body, which I had become disconnected from again, trying to push this femininity that I felt was being imposed on me away. I was trying to push away my femaleness. Um, but I've like as I've gotten back in contact with that, I don't know that my body's no longer demanding that I use she, her pronouns for it or them or she or he, whatever pronouns are fine. That's not the important part there. But I've recognized that those female parts of me, like when I was during the time when I wanted to become pregnant, for example, like that was a huge part of it, like a biological drive that does feel um, female to me. But again, to a trans man, it may not be that way. Um, and then also, like, there are parts of me that do feel parts of my body and my body's urges that feel more masculine. There are certain energies that I have that contextually, and I mean, I can't really take anything out of context. We can't, if we isolate ourselves from the context we're in, we're no longer, it's like we are intertwined inextricably with our culture, with the people around us. So it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know what I'm like outside of my
Mhm.
culture and the people I interact with, but in my life, um, yeah, there are elements of masculinity and femininity and things that feel unattached to either. And so I feel like I can feel maleness in me and I can feel femaleness in me and I can feel, even though my body is limited, I feel like there are still things in my body that are beyond that,
Yes.
that just cannot be captured by binary words of male and female, which honestly, those sorts of things have been imposed on us externally more than they have internally. Well, for me, I feel like they've been imposed externally more than internally.
So I get curious about that because I wonder. I've been playing with this the last 2 years with this. I do an embodied masculinity program that I lead. It's like 6 months long.
Yeah.
It's a small container with biological men in particular because of the development sexually and
Mhm.
the socialization of growing up as a boy. So we play
Yeah.
with those, the conditioning, social conditioning. So we play with those two things in particular. But I've been playing with, I think part of the issue for me is conflating masculine with male and feminine with female. And
Mhm.
I've been, wondering if male and female was simply anatomical and literally animalistic, like to me, ancestral. Like
Mhm.
my friend said it in this way, where she said, like a computer part, like one part comes out, one part goes in. Like it's that kind of simple as in terms of how sex goes.
Mhm.
But masculine and feminine were the energies that weren't exclusive to sex, right?
Mhm.
They're these energies that can move through any body that any of us can evoke and kind of nurture and tend to. And what I find fascinating is in these groups I work with, again, with biological men in this case, when they're invoking femininity, which they've been told they're not allowed to do, something new gets created. So when you say beyond, this
Yes.
beyond comes through. And it's really profound. And I think I enjoy it so much because I was initiated into it without choice because of my
Yeah.
biology. It's like I was always playing and feeling that beyond in between these two fields of feminine, masculine, female, male in my own body. So
Mhm.
to kind of see other bodies that don't have that same biological ambiguity I did,
Mhm.
accessing this otherness, this, like
Yeah.
wonderful otherness by letting masculine and feminine move through whenever they want. It's almost like it gives birth to something new inside of them. And so I'm
Yeah.
saying that because what interests me is when you say shackles of femininity and aspects of the female body that were not being related to or being discounted or dissociated from,
Mhm.
can you share whatever you feel comfortable sharing? What historically were those shackles that were gendered? Because when you
Mhm.
say imposed on us, being male doesn't feel imposed on me, but the constructs that come with being male, that does feel like it was imposed on me.
Mhm.
So can you tell me a
Yes.
bit about that for yourself? How would you describe that?
Yes. All right. So you're looking the femininity, not the femaleness. That's
Yeah.
what you're asking about,
Yeah,
right?
that's what
Just
I'm
make
curious
sure I've
about.
got
But
it.
you can say
Okay.
whatever you're hearing too. Tell me what you're feeling.
Um, well, first thing I do want to acknowledge is that when you were talking about sort of the biological aspect of things, I do want to make sure that I say that one of my partners is a trans woman. And for her, when we've had this discussion about like the sex of our bodies sort of thing, for her, um, going on estrogen and progesterone made her feel more in alignment with her body. So
Hmm.
although one might look at parts of her and say, oh, that's biologically male, for her, biologically, when her hormones were aligned to the female side, that's when her body feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want it to just be down to, you know, physical parts. Like I feel like that's too small of a thing. And also when I'm interacting with people, like because I work with I'm a massage therapist, and I work with people who have cancer. Is one of my uh, clients that I work with. And so if a woman has a double mastectomy, it's like she no longer has her breasts, and that is something that is a big signal of femininity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's often this feeling of them possibly losing their femaleness, losing their femininity. And so I don't want it to be down to parts. You know what I mean? Um, but then I'm going to take that. But having visible breasts in this culture is the thing that's a signal that people hone in on right away. Like that's that. And so the number of people that I've interacted with in my life who came at me just with their eyes on my chest and not interacting with me as a human, but as an object, that is something I've been experiencing since I was 10 years old. So I don't know what it's like to be a person who hasn't been objectified in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of femininity comes with that. And I refuse to change things about the way that I dress or wear my hair or whatever to make other people, to try to manipulate the way that other people see me. My external, what someone would call my gender presentation to me is not my gender presentation. It's in alignment with what feels good to me, what feels comfortable for me, what just I kind of like, what
Yeah.
brings me joy. Um, Femininity has meant the shackles of femininity, as I said. What that has meant for me has been people looking to me for emotional labor in situations. It is expected right out of the gate that I will be the one to do all of the soothing. I will be the one doing the nurturing, where my attention goes. Um, like all the things that are expected of me in relationships, even with people I don't know. Like strangers will expect me to behave in certain ways toward them simply because they look at me and see someone feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Let's pause there a minute because I'm
yeah,
relating to a lot of this as well. Because when I was 10, that's when my breast started to develop. And
yeah.
so I clearly remember suddenly being objectified by all my male
Mhm.
peers in particular. And
Yes.
it's an interesting experience. Like earlier when you were saying about context, it's a really great way to put it because one thing I'm always questioning is I did get top surgery when I was 23. And like when you're talking about your partner, I distinctly remember having top surgery and took me 3 or 4 weeks to heal. It was excruciatingly painful. And then when it was over, I remember this feeling of I finally look the way I feel. Like I
Mhm.
deeply know when people talk about gender affirming care, like I
Yeah.
don't doubt that for a second. I remember just feeling whole. What was interesting for me, and I've talked about this a lot in my own experiences publicly, is my dysphoria with my hips remained because when you have higher estrogen levels, you have wider hips. And so I could have those surgically manipulated. I chose not to
Mhm.
because for the
Yeah.
most part, I'm passable depending on what I'm wearing. You're not going to
Yeah.
notice that I have hips. And so I feel comfortable with that. But I'm saying all this because I get fascinated with the same question of what if I was in a different context? What if I was in a culture where intersex people were not hidden, first of all? So I grew up kind of understanding my body. I didn't know anything until I was 20, 21. And then I also wondered, what if breasts were something that didn't activate people in such a way? What if they weren't a sexual object immediately? What if they weren't a nurturing object immediately? What if they were just someone's body? And I've often wondered, would I be sitting here speaking to you right now with my breasts? Would they still be here?
Right.
And so I'm
Yeah.
asking that out of curiosity because what fascinates me about your experience and when you wrote to me was what changed for you when you paused during, contemplating surgery, hormones, whatever it is that you were or are contemplating, what changed in that pause to make your body part of the decision rather than just going with what you thought your mind wanted?
Uh, well, I mean, it was it was the somatic work. I took that course with you, and I was like, oh, I really need to be in better contact with my body.
But
Um,
did you know that that was why, or did that come up by mistake or accident?
um, I I was not. This wasn't something. This wasn't a decision I was trying to make in conjunction with my body before the course. No.
Got it. So you didn't take
Um,
the course because of this, or was this part of the reason you took the
no,
course?
I chose to. I had friends who were trying to encourage me to listen to your podcast, which I did. And last year was my year of ease. And it just so happened that I had the first break in my academic career in years, exactly at the time period when the 6 week course was. And a medical expense I had been saving up for, that I'd been budgeting for every week, ended just before the course, and it would cost me the same amount.
Oh, wow.
So it aligned perfectly. And I was like, well, I asked for ease. And because of because you've been so open about your experience as an intersex person, that made me feel comfortable in a way that I don't think that I would have in a somatic course with someone who has a traditionally aligned gender experience.
That makes sense. I'm curious with you because when I'm thinking of this place where we both relate to being shackled by feminine constructs. We have a history of that. It's one
Yeah.
thing that makes me an unusual therapist because people see me as just having a typical male experience. They don't realize I dealt with misogyny for a decade. And so, partially, not fully, but still. So I'm saying that just because I wonder, do we go through these things because of what's shackled onto us externally? Is it a nature that comes through us regardless? I don't know if we can even answer it fully because we don't know otherwise. But what have you
Yeah.
learned over this last year and a half while you're going through your own understanding of your body
Mm.
and your gender and your sex and sexuality and such with the somatic
Yeah.
piece, particularly around how other people grasp onto a construct and put it onto you, and that feels constricting. Are we fighting the
Yeah.
construct or is it our true nature? I'm trying to understand that of myself.
Well, I feel like again, with that phrase, lucky enough to transcend gender, like I feel like as I got more and more in contact with my body, um, so for example, like when I started the testosterone, every day before I would take it, I would ask my body for permission. And some days I got permission and some days I didn't. And I have maintained that. Um, it, and like I'm getting signals from my body letting me know whether the hormone is the right thing for me that day. Like it's a relationship I never expected to have with myself. And it, in the course, we talk a lot about animism and the body as its own sovereign being. And I have come over the course of this past nearly 2 years now, yeah, uh, to view myself as the animal companion of my body instead of
Mm.
the other way around. Where I think during the course, I was thinking, oh, yes, my body is my animal companion that's with me from, in utero till death. And I have flipped that around now where
Tell me about that. What does that mean? That's fascinating.
um,
You're the animal.
that it's like, because I was thinking of my body as my pet, sort of, and now I'm thinking of me as the pet of my body now. it's it's the strangest thing.
No, I'm
I,
loving this. It's
um,
almost like when people say, "Do I think first or do I feel first?" It's like,
yeah, I so I mean our cognitive faculties evolved last, right? So we were like in our ancestral
mm,
history before we were humans, we were animals that didn't have language, that didn't have a prefrontal cortex. And so I feel like our bodies evolved this thing that we think of as ourselves as a way, like a social networking interface,
mhm.
essentially, so that we are able to connect with each other and to get our body's needs met and to continue the species.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like the body evolved to give birth to our conscious selves to help the
Yes,
body.
yes,
Oh, I love
exactly.
that. I've never thought of it that way. That's brilliant.
And so And so one of the other joys of this somatic work and getting in contact with my body is that the more in contact with it I am, the more I recognize where constriction exists.
Mm.
And the more I can recognize where constriction exists, the more I can work with that to find a sense of security so that it can be allowed to unfold and open.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of with my hands, I'm making sort of a blooming motion because that's what it really feels like to me. And as I've done that more and more, I've been able to enter into more secure relationships with the people in my life. I've been able to receive in ways I've never been able to before. I used giving, and part of that was part of my feminine identity was giving all the time. Giving was a way to get my interpersonal needs met in a safe way, but now I'm realizing that I wasn't fully safe. I was closed off to the receiving part of things. And so now, as I've opened up those constricted places and can receive more, I am more interconnected with the people in my life, more than I've ever even imagined possible. And that interconnection, there's a spirituality to it. I'm an atheist, but I have this strong sense of spirituality now that I didn't have before. And it's that interconnectedness amongst people and trees and animals um,
My
that
heart
I
is
can,
blossoming.
yeah,
That
yeah,
blossoming I'm feeling that
yeah,
coming
that,
toward you as you're saying this, because I'm hearing, as you're talking, I keep hearing, oh, transcending gender is freeing you. Transcending
yes,
gender is freeing you to relate however you want to in the moment without the overcouplings of gender constructs. Is that right?
yes, that's exactly right. It's like the connection is on a different level, and the societal constructs that are put on us. Um, I mean, it's hard for me to have a conversation without bringing up white supremacy culture because I see it everywhere now. Like I can just see how it is trying to force us into a box that is counter to our nature.
Tell me your experience of that.
Um, so, I mean, much of how the colonial culture, colonial capitalist culture that we live in was developed was distinguishing between how are humans different from animals, and then if the more human a person is, the less animal like they are.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so our culture evolved so that people with money and power were trying to be as inhuman in someone that, well, it's unanimal, excuse me, to me it's inhuman.
Yeah.
um, but as little like animals as possible, separating them more and more from their bodies, from their natures. And anyone who was more connected with that was considered uncivilized, barbaric, those sorts of things, as if that was moving us towards something better and higher.
Hmm.
And I feel like I can see some advantages that have come from that. But largely, I feel like the pendulum swung too far
Yeah.
and took us very far away from our nature. And that has severed us from our humanity and our connection with everything else so far that there's this, the word desiderium is this longing for something that we've never quite had.
Mm.
And I love that word. It speaks to this grief that I've felt my whole life for something that I yearned for. I love fantasy literature, for example, like this yearning for something that was there that's no longer there. And I think it's that white supremacy culture has divorced us from the connection with the earth and with each other and with the animals and the plants and the fungus and the water and the wind, the land. And
Yeah.
this somatic work is a way of reconnecting with that. And then I'm connecting with people rather than through this oppressive overcultural lens of you need to do this and you need to be this way, you need to say these things, you need to think these things, that if you don't, you should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you?
Hmm.
And I've always rejected the shame. I've never allowed it. But I've, by not changing my behavior in alignment with what the culture wanted from me, I experienced a strong sense of loneliness, of isolation, of alienation, of disconnection. And that is the stick that it's like the carrot and the stick. The carrot is, oh, you'll be rich and famous and what have you, comfortable. But if you don't, you're going to be disconnected. You're going to be kicked out. You're going to be ostracized. You're not going to get the societal support that you need. And so I have most of my life not had the interpersonal support that I needed, but I refused to give up on myself. And fortunately now, like the more in alignment I've become with myself, the more I've been able to get in alignment with authentic aspects of other people in my life. And that's enabled them to bloom more authentically.
Mhm.
And so we are all more interconnected.
Well, I used to say often that somatic work is the decolonization of the body. And this is
Mm.
what you're really speaking to, is this place in history. And I used to talk about this a lot in terms of white supremacy, and I stopped using that term. I don't know if it's right for me to stop or not, but I'm just going with what feels right for me, because
Yeah.
I got really interested in human supremacy, and I got
Mhm.
interested in the history of that and how it extends, far beyond the white man. It's like historically there are so many cultures that oppress their own people and other cultures way beyond the color code. White supremacy is the historical color code of America, that's for sure. So when we're placing it, let's say in a historical event like the colonization of the West, for instance,
Mhm.
that is accurate. That resonates for me. I've been expanding it to human supremacy because my one of my teachers, Amber McZeal, her work is called Decolonizing the Psyche. And a lot of the work that she has done was to show, well, the psyche actually is part of becoming colonized, that it's any human being is vulnerable to a psyche that becomes dominating. And I got really
Mhm.
interested in that. And it's the exact thing you laid out, which was suddenly pitting yourself as human against animal, against plant, and then against other humans and other kinds of humans, other expressions of humans. The psyche starts segregating itself from the world around it. And it starts to say, I'm not even just I'm separate, but I'm above it. And this is where the human
Mhm.
supremacy piece fascinates me, because culture and then the world and the structure of society is just rolled out to serve the human. So there's
Mhm.
this extreme amount of self-centeredness in some of the most aggressive, toxic, imbalancing ways you can imagine. And when you're talking about everything you're saying with your body and how constructs are created to keep certain people in certain positions, to keep certain power dynamics alive, when those things start to, I'm going to say unfold, because it feels like they're folded up and it's really painful when you're living in them.
Ooh.
When they start blossoming and unfolding from you,
Mhm.
just like you, that was my big breakthrough. It started when I was 13, where I went to the forest and I saw these
Mhm.
trees with these huge bulbous lumps on them.
Yeah.
And I had breasts and I had cystic acne at the time. And I remember thinking, why is it I can look at that tree and think it's beautiful? But I look at my body and I think I don't belong here. I'm not from here. How could I not be from something that looks just like that tree? And it was this
Mhm.
huge undoing that started happening. I didn't understand it. I was too young. But over the years, it was this unfolding from human supremacy. So I'm saying that because I love this piece around, we can even throw gender out right now. That's part of it. But the
Mhm.
real
Yep.
umbrella I'm hearing is any association or overcoupling that limits you, essentially, is something that you're looking to unfold from. So you can
Mhm.
see, how do I relate? How do I live this life in an unlimited way? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so. The Part of the reason that white supremacy culture, I brought that in for this is I need to. There's a book that I recently read called "White Tears, Brown Scars: How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color," and it's by Ruby Hamad. And
What's
in
the
it, she
piece
talks.
you got from that? What was the main piece that was
And
alive?
so the main piece for it for me was that the construction of whiteness was in part done by separating out white people being placed into these restrictive binary gender roles. Like that was being created as a way to separate them out from black and brown people whom they saw as being less human, less deserving, um, and that black and brown people were not well differentiated in gender, and that was somehow barbaric and uncivilized.
I see what you're saying. So, like, a woman should be like this one is a civilized woman. If you don't have these
Mhm.
characteristics, you're an uncivilized person because your woman role
Yes.
isn't. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yes. Yes. And so
Got
I
it. So this is
cannot
why it's a tag
separate
team.
out. Mhm,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I see that. So when you're sitting here in this chair
Mhm,
and you're thinking
mhm,
this year and a half of practicing and you're
mhm,
feeling this whole new experience with your body, especially when you said like I'm relating to the people and spaces around me in a way I never have
mhm.
before.
Yep.
How I guess what I'm so curious about because this is an incredible example, I was gonna say expression, maybe expression of an uncoupling, meaning
Mhm,
everything just as I had that you developed in with your body, breasts, certain
mhm,
attributes, certain energies, not even physical, but just the way we are in the world when our feminine is expressing,
mhm,
they had certain connotations attached to them, which felt really maybe sometimes were aggressive, but felt extremely
mhm,
oppressive, right?
mhm,
So here you are not feeling those the same way or at all anymore. How do you
mhm.
relate to your breasts? How do you relate to your femininity when it moves through? How do you relate to that now without the construct feeling like it's, suffocating you? I'm curious.
Yeah, um I could still experience people trying to put those things on me,
Mhm.
but I'm no longer constricted around it. Before
Nice.
I felt it as a threat, and now I no longer do because I feel so stable and secure within myself. Um, yeah, that I have self-trust now that no one can take that away from me.
Mm. See, that's when I talk about finding safety in the self, this is exactly what I'm referring to. Is I'm so
Yeah,
connected to that within me that it doesn't rock me the way you see me. Like I'm not
yeah,
oriented even toward your opinion or overcoupling of me anymore.
yeah. And having that framing of finding safety within the self was very helpful for me on this journey, but it's one I've moved a little bit past that. I'm choosing to use words like security and trust instead, because to me, safety means I can't be hurt and I could still be hurt.
That's
And
true.
so I recognize that people can still hurt me. However, I have a secure base that I know I can trust
Mm.
within myself and within my community. And so even if I am hurt, even if I'm not safe, I know I still have security to return to, and I can trust myself to get me through whatever it is.
I love that. I really love security and trust. I really love that because I like the reality that mm, I'm not okay if I'm not being hurt. When I think of the times I was physically attacked and hurt, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what? How did I survive that? There was, for
Mhm.
whatever reason, I had some deep connection to something inside myself. And that
Yeah.
self connection and trust is what allowed me to emerge with sanity, to be honest, after those attacks. So I love that because that really paints a picture of reality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. I guess I want to ask you one more closing question because what the subject that interested me about that I was kind of weaving this whole conversation around was this early exploration of gender without the body included. So it was really
Mhm.
what I would call a conscious mind or even just a spiritual, moving of gender, even ideology or
Yeah.
philosophy. Then the body gets included. And now you're in this place of
Hmm.
asking the body for permission before you even
Hmm.
use hormones, which is brilliant. My
Yeah.
question is, would you say at this point are you comfortable in this body as it is? Is it shift? Okay, tell me that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am. There were some small changes that have been made that to other people wouldn't seem very remarkable. But for example, I I've always had a good relationship with my body. Like I never went through self-loathing of my body, um, despite negative things that I was getting externally, except for my nose. I always thought my nose was too small. It always bothered me, and this is
Too
something I
small.
struggled.
I always thought
I
mine was too
struggled
big.
with it. Well, I struggled with it so much, and I always loved when people had like larger, like distinct noses. I loved them so much, and I just felt like mine was wrong. And I was like, "How? Why? What? I don't know where that would have come from. It doesn't match society's standards at all." And I didn't understand. Testosterone made my nose grow just a little bit, and I now realize it was gender dysphoria. My nose looks right on my face to me now. It doesn't bother me at all anymore.
See, this is actually a great example of why I love the body and having
Mhm,
these conversations with the body because I'm even, as you say it, I'm hearing, well, you say some days you use testosterone, sometimes you don't, depending on what your body's saying.
mhm,
It's almost like
yeah,
your body is just dosing you exactly what it needs to
mhm.
get whatever the effect is that helps you feel settled.
Yes, it's true, and, I mean, I'm not gonna go into detail, but it's also, like, caused, like, genital changes for me that have there were certain aspects of things that I did feel frustrated with before that have now, like, those are no longer issues for me. Um, it's been yeah, it's these subtle changes I've gotten. My voice is a little bit deeper, and it feels very good to me. It gives me like, I get little rumblies in my chest when I talk now that are soothing to me, like,
Hmm.
kind of like the VU breath. It's like I've got a small VU breath happening anytime I talk that's,
Hmm.
like it feels really good to me. It's like
Hmm.
I don't need to sound androgynous. I just need to sound like me, and I feel
Thank
like I
you.
sound more like me. Yeah.
Again really love this because it speaks to the many spiritual somatic experiences that can accompany somebody along a transition, along a gender questioning experience, around a confusion, around a desire, however it's emerging. It makes me think of a friend of mine named Kelly Ann, who I had on my podcast a little while ago. And she is a trans woman who was talking about how when she was growing up, when she would think about being a woman, she would think about being pregnant. All she wanted to do was be pregnant.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
she's in her 60s now. And she said that now, as a woman, she will hold her boy self as if it's her child in her arms, like with her in her body, right? Hold her body and hold her boy self. And she gets to mother the boy part of her, which his name is Donnie, and she doesn't
Mhm.
call it. She says she refuses to call him dead name. She's like, Donnie was my little boy, and now I get to mother him. And I'm just
Yeah.
saying that out loud because there's these amazing things that happen for all of us who have been initiated anyway. We've been initiated into these strange, unusual experiences with our sex or our gender. I know that for myself. And so when you say these pieces of how like the little rumble, how it soothes you, how your nose is slightly bigger, how there's slight genital changes, how it's these slight changes for whatever reason, we don't even need a reason for it, settle your body and you just feel more like you. Again,
Yeah.
you're learning that with your body. And I think it's just
Yes.
such a beautiful example that you can change something while you love something and then go very slow with the body's permission and the body's response until you kind of meet that place that just feels right.
Yeah. And the I'm so happy you used the word love. Can't believe I hadn't used it yet. Love is such an important word for me. It's such an important value to me. And definitely through this whole thing, a love for myself and my body and us together has been at the core of all of this. And that's the way I'm able to move through the world more with love now that I'm acting in alignment with myself rather than trying to figure out how to navigate what society's trying to put on me.
Mm.
I'm operating from this core that I'm secure and trusting inside of myself. I'm operating with love, and it's changed everything.
That's where we're going to land. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining me and
Mhm.
for reaching out and finding me in the first place and listening to those friends that wanted you to listen to my podcast. So you could do this work and change your own life, but also you could teach us
Mhm.
all later on this podcast because it's just a beautiful picture of how to be with the body through changes.
Mhm.
Thank you, my
Thank you.
friend. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com. I have developed a 4-week self-paced course that takes 18 years of my personal and professional experience and puts it into one place where you can easily and quickly learn the foundations of recovering from stress and trauma. How does the food you eat affect your stress levels? How do the relationships in your life create stress or peace? How does the relationship you have with your body allow you to feel happier and more settled? I will cover all this and so much more in this 4-week self-paced course. And the best part, it's self-paced. You don't have to sign up at a certain date or finish it at a certain time. It's yours for life, and it's waiting there for you when you're ready to finish it. Throughout this course, I'll be teaching you philosophies and practices that combine my 3 favorite modalities: somatic experiencing, embodied parts work, and nutrition. For more information on this course, click on the link in my episode details.